All right, good morning, everyone. It's the digital novelist, Keith Hayden, or good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening. And in this one, this is going to be a novel writing update. This isn't going to be a official episode. I think these are going to become these daily after updates. These are going to become probably um, if you subscribe to my digital novelist, dedicated digital novelist, then I'm going to send these behind the scenes writing updates to you. Because before I moved, before all that stuff, I was doing this daily. And I was doing it kind of randomly. Some days I would do videos, other days I would do audio recordings, some days I would just type. I still may switch up sometimes, but I think videos are better right now just because videos have become a lot more easier to produce and they're not as much work as they used to be. So this is going to be the first update that I've done since I moved. So it's going to be in over 2 months for the book. But that does not mean that I have not been writing. I have worked on this novel, Gates of Okinawa, this supernatural horror novel, for 117 days straight. That's right, 117. We're coming up on another 30-day milestone, almost 120 next week. And in that time, it's pretty amazing because when I think of like getting a full novel done in 120 days, it's pretty fast for a novel. My first novel took me a year and a half to get through the first draft, maybe, I don't know, 6 months, 7 months. But what I found doing it every day is that I've gotten a lot faster at not only producing new stuff, but going back and looking at my old stuff. And I think that's a sign of my writer maturity, is that going back and looking at my old stuff, like after I write it, is not as painful, because I think that's something you have to push through early on when you first start writing. You're not sure if what you write is any good, and you've never written that much fiction. In the past, you've read a lot of fiction maybe, but you've never written it. So when you go back, you really pummel yourself, and you're like, this is bad, and this is bad, and then you're going by some invisible standard of somebody else's standard. But what's happened with me with this project is I know my own standard now because I've written so much of my own fiction and nonfiction that I know what my standard is. I know what I'm capable of doing, and I know what I'd like to see. And when I catch myself like getting that spark of joy from reading my own writing, I know I've hit the mark, and I'm getting there faster and faster to where I can write original work with Gates of Okinawa and then go back and edit it. I can do that in the same day and have a complete, pretty much 95% done chapter. Today's Sunday, so yesterday was a huge writing day. I wrote for probably collectively maybe 3+ hours, probably 4 hours yesterday. I did a new chapter, and yeah, I finished that chapter, and it turned out to be a really good chapter. I also did one of those new AI conversation things with Google Notebook LM, and those are cool. I really like how it's just, even though it's AI, it comes off as like an objective voice about the writing, which is really cool. And then they go into details of the story. It's a good hype builder to really get people into it. So I don't know how much more I'm going to use it though, just because the voices, I'm sure they'll add different voices in the future, but they get kind of stale. Let's get to today. So today, I started today's writing session by reading my random book, one page, and I picked this Whopper Infinite Jest. It is a massive book, this thing. It's like almost 1,100 pages. And I've heard so much about this author, David Foster Wallace. He's like one of the authors that a lot of um, a lot of writers who are like real writers, they would consider themselves real writers, like very literary, modern writers, mention his name. And I read one page from it, and I guess the writing was okay. Maybe it's just the style of that one page, but it didn't really impress me that much. But anyway, I did learn a new word from it, though. Etiology. Etiology is like the origin of, mostly used in a medical sense, origin of like a disease or diagnosis or something like that. It can be used for like myths and stuff too. I had to look it up because I'd never seen that word before. But yeah, so I started that, and then I just did a quick 10-minute writing session. I wrote for 10 minutes, and currently on chapter 14 of the book. And this is one of the last chapters that I handwrote. I'm looking over there because this is what I was looking from this morning. You can see the date. I wrote this about a month ago, and this is the last page of that chapter. So chapter 14 of Gates of Okinawa is, chapter 13 was a huge, like, hyped up chapter. We have the fire, we have a lot of tension in that chapter. Xena goes in and has to do some heroics, and at the end of that chapter, we don't really know what happens. And so this picks up right after the incident, and then kind of her experience in the emergency room, because she's been involved in the fire, and yeah, she's obviously, you're in a fire, you got to get treated after. And I remember writing this chapter, and it was written about a week after my own emergency room visit. And if you've watched a couple of live streams, I'll just summarize it. Last month, I was very sick. The first half of the month, like headaches. It turned out to be a pretty bad bacterial sinus infection, which I had never had before. And so I ended up in the ER when we first arrived back here, and it was pretty brutal. Not the ER experience, but the being sick. And so a week later, I wrote this chapter, recalling, because it had been a long time since I'd been in the ER. Especially it had been a long time for like something serious. Most of my ER visits over the years are like, it's not like that. It's not like something internal. It's just like I fell, or I hurt myself running, or I hurt myself lifting weights or something like that. But this was different. This was like, you're sick and we don't know why. So it was that type of ER visit. So that's what this chapter is based on. And it's a slower chapter, makes sense after the high-paced chapter from high intensity chapter, the previous one. But I like it. With Xena, the interesting thing about writing her character is that she's an English teacher, but she is, I made her from Texas. She's from down south, where I'm from Texas originally, so pretty easy to get into that mindset and that vernacular, just the way we talk back home sometimes. Yeah, I said down home. That's a Texasism. But yeah, so she has this kind of juxtaposition to where her writing, because most of the story is her journals or her recollection of the events. But then when she speaks in dialogue, it's very informal and colloquial. And so I like jumping back and forth between this kind of flowing language and her English teacher coming out when she's in her head, when she's interacting with other people. It's good old Xena from the country. And then on top of that, we have the Japanese aspect, which I'm pretty sure I know what I'm doing with the Japanese aspect, but it hasn't really fully been fleshed out yet. So the Japanese is there, and I think I know what I'm going to do with it, but you'll just have to wait and see with that. Let's see what else is going on. The other thing that I'm doing right now is I'm basically serializing this novel, and this is the first time I'm doing this, but at least for now, I'm posting all the chapters on Wattpad. And Wattpad is a writing platform, and it's a bunch of stories that people from all around the world write, and there's a bunch of readers on there looking for new stories. So if you're interested, you can go on Wattpad and read from chapter 1 to 13 as of this recording. I'll probably have 14 up by the end of the day, but there may be more by the time you watch this. But yeah, Wattpad, I'm trying this mainly because I've been thinking a lot about books in general and distribution, and how the model of book distribution has been very fixed for hundreds of years, i.e., you write a book, you bind it up, you print it, and then you sell the book. Of course, in the last 15 years, we've gotten ebooks, and then audiobooks have become big. But selling books is not the best way to make money as a novelist, I'm thinking. And I think that's the fallacy that I've fallen into, because, that's the only model most people know is you write a book. Well, the only time you make money is when you finish it and sell it. But because people are so used to content nowadays, they're so used to paying subscriptions and platforms and getting things delivered to them. That's not the best way. And I'm thinking there's potential to unlock a new business model to where the book itself is kind of just bonus money. But really, you have to, these days you can kind of optimize for what you want. If you're just hoping for the book to sell the books, well, then that requires you to already have a following of people that you can sell the book to. But if you're a new writer, like I'm new, but I mean, I'm definitely an indie writer now officially, because I've just been putting out so many books this year and in the past few years. But yeah, if you're brand new, it's going to be hard to write your book and sell it. So you have to think of other ways. That's another reason I'm making these types of videos, and I've got stuff on my website for, if you're watching this, then you know I've got the Digital Novelist Toolkit. I've got other tools to help you write your novel. And I think things like that, and then things like consulting and helping other people get on with their books. I think those are things that could be helpful, because the book itself, really right now, my goal is just to get it read. It's just to get it read and to see who's resonating with it, what they like about the story, what they don't like. And that doesn't mean I'm going to change anything, but it is helpful to get it out there. And these last few projects, this year especially, I've gotten better at that. I did it earlier this year with my military autobiography, Hate and Brave. I did it with Sinkhole. I did it with Serious Olympic Second Evolution near the summer. And now with Gates of Okinawa, it's the same thing. To where, as I'm writing, this is definitely the model that if you are a modern novelist, a digital novelist, then you should adopt something like this. Something to where, as you're writing, it doesn't matter what you do, whether you do videos or audio, you just do like a blog post or something. This is what I did today. Something to let people know and keep people in the loop of what's going on, because they expect that nowadays. They expect to get to know you as a writer to some extent, right? You don't have to tell them your life story, but to some extent. And then they just expect a bunch of free shit. You gotta be willing to do that. And it drives my wife crazy, because she's always like, her question is always like, did you get paid for it? Are they paying you? And I have to explain to her that the times are different now. You can't just set up an internet shop or open your stall on the side of the street and expect people to come. Like, you already got to have some type of reputation. You've already got to have some. It helps to have reviews. It's this way with restaurants. Unless it's like a known brand that's launching a new restaurant, you've already got to have something out there to really prove to people that you're legit. especially in this age of AI and all these other things. You don't know who's real, who's not. So I think I'm done with this update. Yeah, I think these are going to start becoming subscriber exclusives. So I think next week I'm going to experiment with putting these out and see if anybody bites and see if anybody enjoys it. Hope you enjoyed this one. There's going to be a lot more coming with the digital novelist, dedicated digital novelist next week. Is my focus on that. And I'm trying to focus on one of my offerings every week. Like this last week, I guess, I focused on the Japanese offering. So I pushed that. And I was on Wani County forums and doing all these things. But next week, I'm focusing on dedicated digital novels and seeing what I can do to make it more valuable for you, for new people that want to come in and really write their novel so I can help them. So that's going to be it for this one. If you have feedback or you are working on your novel and you got a chapter, well, with Dedicated Digital Novelist, you get one free look at your chapter. So send me a chapter of what you're working on, even if it's your first chapter, and yeah, I'll give you some feedback. I'll read through it and tell you what I think. Of course, at the end of the day, you got to write what you want to write. And that's the thing. I see stuff online all the time. Is you got to write like this and editing like this. And you can write any fucking way you want. I mean, there's cats out there using no periods in their novels. How are you supposed to read that? I haven't read it. I heard Cormac McCarthy. That's one of those. But you can write whatever the hell the way you want. So it's more important to write the story that you want to write than the story that you think you should be writing. That always leads to a better story in the end. One that's genuine, that truly comes from you. So, but it still helps to have other eyes on, especially someone who knows fiction, who writes and reads a lot of fiction. That's me. So if you want help, send a reply, hit me up to the website, or get me on X, Twitter, or YouTube, wherever I'm at, and then we can talk about it. Thanks for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one.